Well, we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome. My name is Connie Davis. I am the founder of Kairos. I've been doing some consulting and doing some work, very meaningful work in the community around me, working with domestic violence victims and survivors and the agencies in the community that support them, and ran across a number of different organizations and individuals like Dr. John. And we started talking about the conflict that's going on in the workplace. There's a number of different themes and trends that have been going on, and we thought temperament has been such an instrumental tool for me personally in my own professional and personal development that I think there's a lot of themes here that we're going to talk about tonight in our fireside chat. And I wanted to give Dr. John an opportunity to talk about his temperament journey, how he developed it, and just give you all an overview. I know one of you that's on the call has been able to take advantage of a free gift that we sent out, where Tom was able to do his temperament profile in advance of the call. So Tom, I hope this helps you understand that a little bit more. But we get started. I'm going to just kick us off here. And let me just advance the slide. So just a high level on Kairos, and Kairos stands for a Greek word, which is really about the time is now. It's a transformation or a change of life. And that literally is what I did in 2020 when I started this organization, and a consulting approach to ethical innovation, whether it's digital technology, whether it's business models, whether it's consulting conversations. It was all about elevating the conversation. So what we did is we formed a collaboration of individuals like Dr. John, who help elevate the conversation and bring new themes of conversation and topics or technology and tools to the community. And we really have been doing a lot of work in the nonprofit space. So I'm excited to see all of you here. Our mission at Kairos has been to transform siloed ecosystems of commerce and or community organizations. Commerce is all about creating, the act of buying and selling, and we all create value in the communities around us based on our knowledge and our time. And sometimes we have widgets or products and services to sell, but most of all, it's about building up our value. It's about mining value in our knowledge in our community. So we have a vision of creating a community that contribute expertise and knowledge in what we call a foundry, that we can literally create a ripple effect of ethical innovation. And that's what Kairos has been doing. So I'm really excited to talk a little bit about the change that really kind of created this conversation. And that was the world has completely changed since COVID. And I think we can all probably agree that in the act of commerce, it's still about people serving people. And I'm really passionate about that. And companies and small businesses have tremendous influence on the communities around them, the youth that's working for them, that's learning leadership skills and building knowledge or interacting with older members of the community in how they interact, whether they're working side by side or they're taking over roles as elder members retire and kind of exit the workforce. We have new workforce members coming in, but a lot of people are trying to figure out this work-life balance. And that's really been strongly emphasized across generations since COVID. We also have a very challenging trend going on in the people or human resources arena with multi-generational dynamics that are working together. And sometimes those are challenging. And that has certainly been an area where temperament for me has been an amazing tool. It helps also to understand why we have so many needs to do meaningful work or work on projects or missions at our company that fulfill that desire inside of ourselves to contribute to social impact or social justice. And then last but not least, it helps us understand communication preferences that incorporate our needs to be able to communicate effectively or clearly with our peers, whether they're in person or working across the country. Sometimes those are challenging environments and dynamics to manage as well. So the communication preferences that companies have had to distribute or incorporate since COVID has also tremendously changed. And here we are having a virtual meeting and using Zoom, which is one of the new tools to be able to have education and communication. So these are just a few trends that really set the stage for what Dr. John is going to share with you about temperament and how we can go from a place of conflict where we felt forced and out of our normal comfort zone and into a place where we believe temperament is a great tool to create opportunities for collaboration. And it's on all of us to figure out how to apply it in our specific roles and lives. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. John. And Dr. John, would you mind just giving us a brief overview of who you are and your background, and then we'll get you started on your slides.
I'll be glad to do that. Y'all have to pack a lunch. Okay. Do you going to advance the slide? Oh, there we go.
There you go.
I'll tell you a little bit about my background as far as temperament is concerned. Temperament, there's 5 different temperaments. The IS up there in the left-hand corner is what we call the introverted sanguine. This is the sanguine, this is the phlegmatic, this is the melancholy, and this is the choleric. So that is the 5 temperaments that we have that we discuss. But before we get to the temperaments as discussing them, let me just tell you who you are based upon your temperament design, because that's what we're talking about. We're talking about you and your intrinsic design that was determined at conception. So when I look at you and if I ask you a question and I say, let's say that you and I go out for lunch and we're having lunch and somebody over there at a couple tables away is acting out and misbehaving. And I say to you, well, that person's temperament is unusual. Or I say that person's character is bad. Or I say, well, that person's got a different personality, or their behavior is unusual. So I use temperament, character, personality, and behavior describing that individual. But you understood what I was talking about because we're looking at that individual's external manifestation of their behavior, and I'm labeling them either with character, with temperament, with personality, or with behavior. I'm using those 4 labels synonymously, addressing my friend about that person, and my friend's going to understand exactly what I'm saying using those 4 terms. Agree? Okay, so when I say that, what we're talking about is we're talking about a manifestation of that individual's behavior. And as a result, we're making a statement about that individual based on what we see and what we hear. That's not what's going on inside the individual. That's an external manifestation of that individual, but we don't know what's going on inside that individual. We don't know what their needs and desires are that's causing them to behave the way they're behaving, because we don't know that about them. All we're doing is labeling them based on our observation, which is 9 times out of 10 is going to be incorrect, because the person is putting on a mask, and what you're looking at is not the real person. You're looking at a mask, and that is always false. So when we look at your temperament, we look at the subjective side of you. So we're going to look at the internal design of who you are that was determined at conception. And what was determined at conception is your temperament, and your temperament does not ever change. Your character, which was determined in your formative stages, when you were growing up, your family of origin, your siblings, your aunts and uncles, the schools you went to, the communities you lived in, where you lived in the regions you lived in, all determined your character. The friends you associated with and run with determined they shaped and molded you, whether it was appropriately or inappropriately. That character formation was shaped in that environment. Out of that comes your personality, and your personality is nothing more than a mask that you put on for each and every situation that you find yourself in. And you're not going to let the people see who you truly are inside, because you don't want them to see who you are unless you're a real transparent individual. And there are some people out there like Tom, who has joined us. He's very transparent. What you see is what you get. But there's only one temperament that is like that. The other 4 are more clandestine. They hide behind themselves. They hide behind their mask. They don't let you see who they are, and you don't know who they are. You're only working with a false face mask when you're dealing with that individual. until you come to where you understand temperament. Once you understand temperament, then you can begin to communicate with individuals based upon who they truly are, based upon their unique design. That's what temperament is. Temperament is understanding the design that you were born with that was determined at conception, and it never changes. Character, personality, and behavior are always changing because they are fluid. That is the key thing that you need to understand about temperament. All of the instruments that are out there on the market, the Myers-Briggs, the DISC, the Keirsey, the PUM, the enneagrams, the animalgrams, the vegetation grams, the colorgrams. I mean, it goes on and on and on. There are hundreds of instruments out there in personality. They actually call them temperament assessments, character assessments, personality assessments, and behavioral assessments. That's what they call them, and they're all over the market. But they only measure what's going on externally about individuals. That's why they're flawed. They're not dependable. They're not reliable. They're not measurable, and they're always changing. You can never depend upon them. The way I found out the hard way was in my private practice. I would go out and become qualified on these instruments, certified, and I'd buy thousands of dollars worth of instruments, bring them home, put in my filing cabinets, and start using them every day diligently, because we're in the people business. All of us, we help people. And that's what I was doing, helping people. And I'd buy me an instrument, bring it home, all trained on it and everything, and put it into place, and get my clients coming in there, start working with them, thinking I was doing a good job, only to find out that I was failing. I was not achieving my goal to help that individual out of their situation. The reason I wasn't helping them because I was dealing with either their behavior, personality, or their character. I wasn't dealing with the true temperament of the individual. I did not know who the core person was because I didn't have a way to assess that, to measure that, to look at that intrinsic design of that individual. So I would go get trained on another instrument. So I had a whole string of instruments that I've been trained on and certified on, and they all let me down in the end. And that's when I decided I'm going to create my own. I won't go into all the details of that because it's a long, long story. It's 40 years long. But anyway, we've got the product today. It's finished. It's complete. It is powerful. And I've done thousands of these profiles in the last 40 years. And it is so reliable, dependable. It's more reliable than the Myers-Briggs type indicator by 2 points. And I'm so thankful for that. Did you advance that?
Yes, I did.
Oh, okay. There are 6 components to the temperament profile. When you look at them, it's easy to understand you're not just a simple individual who's outgoing, or you're not just a simple individual who's an introverted individual who likes to hide in a cave and do their own thing. You look at yourself, you have 6 different components of your temperament makeup, and you can be any one of the 6, and you can be functioning in any one of the 6 at any given moment if you know what they are and you know how to read them and understand them. So let me explain to you what they are. When we evaluate you from a temperament perspective, we look at 3 designs. We look at your social temperament, we look at your leadership temperament, and we look at your relationship temperament. So when we look at your social profile, which is your surface level relationships, your work environment, we're looking at that only. When we look at that, we're looking at 2 areas of your social vocational environment. We're looking at how you demonstrate your demonstrated behavior towards other people in that environment, and we're looking at what you desire back from other people towards you in your social vocational environment. So there's 2 items we're looking at, because you're not going to demonstrate towards people necessarily the same that you want back from them. You don't demonstrate and you don't want back the same thing always. Sometimes you do and sometimes you don't. It depends upon your temperament makeup. Now, you may demonstrate that you want to be socially active with them, but you may not want them being socially active with you at all. So if you're being outgoing towards people, in your social vocational environment, and you're outgoing, you're an extrovert. And at the same time, these people seeing you becoming an extrovert, and they think, well, this person's friendly, I'm going to be friendly with them. And they come trying to be friendly with you, and you don't want them to be friendly with you because your temperament design is you're an introverted in what you desire back from them. You're going to feel uncomfortable when people start coming to you. Although you're outgoing and they start coming to you being outgoing, you're going to feel very uncomfortable because you don't want them in your space. And as a result, you're going to feel uncomfortable internally. And that internal uncomfortableness is a caution light going off saying to you, something's wrong here. They're violating your boundaries. They're pushing you outside of your bandwidth. You need to get back in your bandwidth in order to feel comfortable again. And you will not feel comfortable in your personal makeup internally. You won't feel comfortable until you float back into where you feel comfortable, which is going to be your temperament design that was intrinsically determined at your conception. That's your social vocational area. Then we go into your leadership, which is the power and control in your life, whether somebody can lead you, guide you, and direct you, or whether you want to lead and guide and direct other people. So in your leadership, you demonstrate that you want to lead, or you desire that you want to be led. Which is it? Like myself, I'm a leader. I'm a natural born leader, have been all my life. I got out of the military in 1976. I've never worked for anybody. I would never think of working for anybody. I just don't think like that. Can anybody lead me? No, I don't want to be led. I don't need to be led. I'm okay by myself. Don't try to lead me. Right, Tom? Right. We're doing okay. Natural leaders don't want anybody telling them what to do. And let me tell you something. Most of you out there don't want anybody telling you what to do. There are a few temperaments that do need to be led, that do need to be told what to do. They want you to tell them what to do, but the majority of you do not want anybody telling you what to do. Okay? Now that's leadership. So now we have four components. We have demonstrated and desired socially, demonstrated and desired in leadership. And then we have two more. We have the relationship temperament, which is your openness for close, intimate relationships. Now, you have you have your demonstrated behavior and how you demonstrate in your close, intimate relationships with your significant other, your children, your friends, and the people that get into your inner circle. You demonstrate towards them one way, and what you want back from them towards you in close intimacy is your desired behavior. So your demonstrated behavior and your desired behavior can be different in relationships as well. It can be different in all three, okay? It gets a little complicated here because I'm going to wrap another layer onto this, because your relationship is your emotional makeup. And we all know that we have emotions, and we know that we allow our emotional makeup to influence our relationships with other people. So when you're leading, you have to be either leading in a social vocational area, or you're going to be leading in a relationship, a close, intimate relationship. Now, listen to me closely. You're not going to lead the same way in a social vocational relationship at work. You're not going to lead the same way there that you lead in your intimate relationship with your significant other, right? But you have to be careful that you don't allow your emotions to override yourself and make your help and let your emotions influence your decisions you're making in your vocation, because that's called the good old boy system, and that will fail your organization. It will fail you, and it's going to cost you time and money and expense, and the organization will suffer the loss because you hired a good old boy system because of your feelings. That's just one little caveat. There's a whole big teaching that gets wrapped around that when we do the certification program. But that's the three components: your social temperament, your leadership temperament, and your relationship temperament. So when you get your profile, which is broken down into those three areas, and in each one of those three areas are the subcategories. There's 11 subcategories of each of the three areas that they're further broken down, explaining the characteristics of those three areas. Anybody has any questions, just raise your hand and ask anytime. This is a lot of good information. Okay, Connie. When you look at the value of temperament, 0 doesn't mean low and bad, and 9 doesn't mean good. It just means that this is where you are on the scale of temperament. Temperament goes from 0 to 9, 0 being that you're an introvert, and 9 simply means that you're an extrovert. So 0 going up to 9, the higher up the scale you go, the more extroverted you are. So when you get your temperament numbers, you're going to have 2 numbers. Go back 1 slide. You're going to have 2 numbers here. You're going to have a demonstrated number and a desired number. 2 numbers here, demonstrated and desired, and 2 numbers here. Like my numbers here, I'm a 0, 0 here. I demonstrate a 0 socially, and I desire a 0. Now that's who I am socially. So I'm an introvert compulsive when it comes to social orientation. I don't socialize. I don't need to socialize. I don't want to socialize unless I'm going out and trying to gather information or teach or train or socialize with my family. Other than that, I do not socialize. I don't have a need for it. So I'm a 0, 0. I will only socialize with selected individuals. Very, very, very few people do I socialize with because I just don't have a need. I like people. I spend my time right here studying, designing, and inventing and creating. That's where I live, in my head, you know. I talked to my coach yesterday. I have an author's coach. And when I was signing on, she says, well, John, smile. Well, I don't smile. I'm just not a smiler. I'm an introverted sanguine in relationship. And introverted sanguines, they don't smile. They look like a bump on a log, you know. They don't show any expression. They look like they don't want you talking to them. They look boring. They look sad. They look depressed, you know, but they're not. Inside, they're just like that little, you know, the little guy that plays the accordion on the street, and they got the little monkey that keeps jumping like this, you know, as he plays the accordion, the monkey jumps. Well, that's what's going on inside of me. When I see people that I like or something that I'm enjoying, or I see somebody coming to me that I like to see them, I haven't seen them for a while, inside of me, it's just like that little monkey jumping. My face is just as solemn and quiet and looks like it's sad and depressed, but inside my little monkey's jumping. I got the jumping monkey going on in there because my friends are coming to see me, right? Which is what introverted sanguines like. They want people to approach them. But you don't know that about me because you don't know my temperament. You're only observing me. So my author's coach, she looked at me, she said, why don't you smile? Well, that's my temperament. I can't help it. That's just my temperament. It doesn't bother me. I'm used to it, you know. But other people don't approach me for that very reason. So you just have to learn that. When you learn that about your temperament, it's kind of freeing because it lets you be who you are, because that's who you are, and it's okay to be who you are. You want to be free. It's like getting out of prison. You're free, you know. So you've got these. If you score 0, 1, 2, or 3, that just simply means you're an introvert. If you're a 4 or 5 in the middle, that means you can either be an introvert or an extrovert. And if you're 6, 7, 8, or 9, that just means you're an extrovert. And the higher up the scale you go, the more extroverted you are. It's just that simple. There's no fancy formulas or nothing. You're either an introvert, extrovert, or right in the middle of the chart. But the thing of it is, you can be an introvert, extrovert in any one of the 3 areas, and you won't know that until you do your profile. So a lot of these profiles out there on the market, they just label you as an extrovert, or as an analytical person, or as a steady person, or as a cautious person. No. You're not that. You're just not that simple. You're a very complex individual. But once you understand the complexities of your temperament design, you will really fall in love with yourself, because there's no such thing as a bad temperament. Everybody's temperament is unique to them and their design. Here's what makes you powerful as an individual, is that everything that you have accumulated in life, you have brought to the table, and nobody else has what you have. Nobody else has your knowledge, your experiences, your education, your training, your aha moments. You bring all that in, and that makes you a valuable individual. And you have that, and nobody else has that but you. That's where you have your exceptional value. And everybody has it. Nobody's left out. Everybody is in the basket together. Okay, let's go on to the next slide.
So just to share, I'm not going to name names, but I mean, I picked on Carrie because Carrie's on from Keros. And so Carrie's number, just to give everybody an idea, is 878068. So you can see kind of where Carrie falls on the scale.
Okay, give me those numbers again. The first two numbers are his social numbers are what?
87.
87. So he's an 8-7. He demonstrates an 8, and what he wants back from you is a 7.
Yep.
Demonstrates an 8, and he desires a 7. So socially, he's going to be just all over the place with people. He's going to be talking and listening to you all the time.
Yep.
Just jabbering all the time and listening to you jabber all the time. And he'll be a happy camper, right? Okay. Yeah. And what's his middle numbers in leadership?
80.
80. So he demonstrates an 8, but what does he want back from you?
Nothing.
Nothing. Don't try to lead Carrie. Now, here's one thing about leaders that are leader, and he is a choleric compulsive. So he's a compulsive leader. He will listen to you if he feels that you have something to offer him that he doesn't have. He'll listen to you until he gets what you have, and then he's gone. Because he's smart. He's only there to get the data and to get the information. But he's got a relational side to him, so he's going to stay there and be relational with you. I won't, because I'm a 9-0. I'm a 0-0-9-0, but he's a in relationship, he's a 6. What is he? In
Relationship 68.
Social orientation.
Oh, social is 80.
80. No, that's leadership.
87.
87. 80. And what is he in relation?
68.
68. Okay, yeah. So in relationship, he's very, very sociable, and he's very, very sociable in relationship. So Carrie's always going to be with people. He's always going to be communicating. He's always going to be the life of the party. He's always going to be leading and directing. He's always going to be outgoing and personable and making people laugh and have fun. And that's just who he is. He's a people person. But you put me beside him, I'm a completely different person. I'm going to be the introvert. I'm a 0-0 socially, but I'm a 9-0 in leadership. Like Carrie, he's an 8. We're both compulsive leaders, but his leadership style and mine are opposite, completely opposite.
Well, and Tom volunteered for us to share his numbers. He's a 96, 40, 47.
Oh, 96, 40.
47.
Well, he's got an internal conflict. He's a very sociable, outgoing person as well. Him and Carrie would have a great time together. Have they ever met?
Not yet.
They'll get along just wonderful. They'll have a great time together because they're both outgoing, and Carrie will he'll lead the pack.
Yeah, and then my daughter's on the phone. So Jessica comes into the introverted sanguine, and she and I are very similar. So she's a 20, 23, 25. So
Yeah.
Good contrast just for the people that are on the phone to see how different we all are.
And that's okay, because this the difference that makes us all so special. And that's what, every time I do a seminar, and I've done hundreds of them, it's not me that makes a seminar. It's not the subject matter that makes a seminar. It's the people in attendance that make the seminar so special, because everybody brings their own temperament, and we get to talk about and discuss everybody's unique temperament. And it's fun because everybody gets to see what's going on in everybody else. And iron sharpens iron. You learn off of each other.
Mm-hmm.
When I talk about my temperament, you say, oh, that resonates with me. I understand that. Yeah, exactly.
Shall we go?
So when you look at the grid system, when you look at your scores graphics from a graphic representation, here's what your scores look like. Like if your score is a 27, you score a 2 up here on your demonstrated social. This is your demonstrated, but what you desire is a 7 is down here. So you're looking at your scores graphically, how they represented. Here they are. your social, your leadership, and your relationship. And it's graphic representation. It's just demonstrated, desired, and demonstrated, desired. Easy to read. You can look at it in a heartbeat. The first number of all three is always a demonstrated. And if the number is like a 2 and a 7 is down here, the 2 on top and 7 below, the top number is always a demonstrated and the bottom number is always the desired. When they're side by side, the first number is always a demonstrated and the second number is always a desired. So you can look at this chart, and once you understand temperament and get certified, you can look at this chart and immediately know who this person is and how this person functions vocationally, as a leader, and in close intimate relationships. You know, in just a glance, look at the chart, look at 6 numbers, you know who they are. That's
So Dr. John, in some of the profiles, you said you've done thousands, and I know, I'm not sure what the age groups there, but when you look at out across those profiles that you've done over the years, what are the variances that you've seen between people, whether they're in the workforce? And Tom had a really good question, so I want to call this out for him. He asked this question about the various generations in the workforce, or just the temperaments across the people that you've profiled.
I haven't found any difference, whether it be vocationally, economically, culturally, geographically, doesn't make any difference. Temperament is temperament. Everybody has a temperament, and everybody has needs and desires in those 3 areas of social orientation, leadership, and relationship. So it's a universal need. It's humanity at its need, at its finest. And when we begin to understand, we can begin to shape culture itself. We can change society by understanding temperament, by getting and helping society get their needs and desires fulfilled by understanding temperament.
I can tell you, Tom, I'll share a little bit of my own personal journey with temperament, is that, I've been in corporate leadership roles. I've been in behind the scenes kind of back office roles, and I'm, in the 2s. I'm very introverted, sanguine as well, and very highly analytical. So leadership is not something that I naturally do. It's a stretch for me. So I have to intentionally choose to put myself in front of people. I'm very much more comfortable in a second kind of positions, like second in charge, or it's just a bit of a stretch. I have to be aware that I'm turning on that leadership spout, and then I want to turn it back off to be comfortable and just kind of go back to my normal. So those are things that I've become more aware of. But I think if we were to empower the youth or people that are, struggling with who they are, what's the right role for them in the workforce, if they're job hopping, it might actually help them find more peace, I think, sooner in their career path, where they can settle in and really become a master of what they want to do or what they choose to do.
Well, it's very difficult for a lot of people out there in the workforce trying to identify and find out where they fit in the work environment. And so they're just looking for a job. But what they do is they find jobs that they don't really fit into because it's against their temperament. It violates them personally. And what they need to do is they need to understand who they are based upon their temperament, and then find a job that's going to accommodate their temperament, rather than going into a job that doesn't accommodate them, because they're going to be unhappy and unfulfilled, and they're not going to last there. There's going to be a turnover because they're inappropriately matched. But if they understand their temperament going in, like I can profile people, I stay 6 to 16, right? Age 6 to 16. But my granddaughter was here a couple of days ago, and she just turned 5 in February. And so I profiled her. I did half of the questionnaire. And she said, "Grandpa, I don't want to do anymore." And I said, but I got through half of them. Now, next time she comes, I'll try to get through the other half. But she's only 5 years old and 3 months, and she did the 1 whole page all by herself. And I asked her the questions, she answered, but she answered every one of them responsibly. And she's only 5 years old. So people know their temperament. They know what they want at that young age. It's already built into them. They know. And so once you understand that, then you work with that person based upon their temperament design. You communicate with them that way, you lead them that way, and you interact with them emotionally in a close relationship that way. And it changes the dynamics of the relationship. And it only takes one person in a relationship to understand temperament to affect everybody in their circle. Because once you understand your temperament, you begin to change your understanding of who you are, then your personification as a person will change automatically. It will improve, and people around you will automatically see you differently, and they're going to start responding to you differently based upon your new makeup, and they're going to change as well. It's just fascinating the way it works. I can tell you stories all day long about people that have been influenced and how they have influenced others in their circles and what has happened to those people. It's just amazing how it works. It's just very, very infectious. It goes from one person to the next, to the next, to the next. And when you learn about it and get a hold of it, you want everybody to know about it because that's how powerful it is. Anyway, I'll get off to preaching here in a minute. Okay. Here's the power of it. When you look at, if you could, I refer to this and I say, remember the pyramid, remember the triangle. Temperament is the base of the triangle that supports everything above it. So down here is your genetic nature. It's not chosen. It's not something you wake up one morning and decide that you're going to have this temperament or that temperament. It's not affected by your environment, and it's unchanging, period. There is something that character, which is determined right here in the middle of the pyramid. I call that the middle section. That's where your beliefs, your values, your morals, it's chosen, it's adopted, and it's molded. And it can change at will. That is your character determination formation. If you are picked up from where you are right now geographically and put in a completely 180-degree different location, environment, over time, your character is going to change in that environment to look like that environment.
So I think that's an important point to just maybe unpack a little bit, because in Florida, especially, a lot of us live here in Florida, but you watch the migration of people that are moving from state to state. And some people move thinking that a new change of scenery is going to help them be happy, or I'm going to move to the beach, or I'm going to move from the beach to the woods or whatever. And can you speak a little bit about that environment?
That doesn't work. It doesn't work. You're running from, you're just like sticking your head in the sand. What you need to do is you need to stop and invest in yourself and understand what are your needs and desires that are being unfulfilled, that's making you feel like you want to escape and go somewhere else for a new start over. Because once you get there, you're going to go through the same thing. After a while, you're there, you're going to say, well, this is not working either, because you haven't changed who you are. You haven't understood your design. You haven't understood how to get your needs and desires fulfilled. And when your needs and desires are not fulfilled, listen, if you don't get them fulfilled in a healthy way, you will get them fulfilled in an unhealthy way. And you're not going to tell anybody about it. It's just going to be between you, yourself, and yourself. That's it. You're going to go sneak off and get them met some way. But once you understand what your needs and desires are vocationally and as a leader and in close intimate relationships, you can begin to get them fulfilled because you know what they are. And that makes a whole world of difference. Most people don't know what their intrinsic desires are. They don't know what their needs are because they don't know their temperament. They go through life looking at their character, looking at their personality, looking at their behavior, and judging themselves based on what other people tell them about themselves, or they judge themselves based on what they see other people's reactions are about them and their behavior. And that's how they label themselves. So they're misjudged, they're misunderstood, they don't know who they are, and they're acting and trying to figure out who they are in all that confusion. And it's a bad place for the society to be, and that's where society is, because they don't know their character. And if they don't take the time to invest in themselves and identify who they are and examine it close enough to get a hold of who they are, they're going to live life in turmoil throughout the rest of their life. If they want to bring peace and harmony and balance into their life, then they need to understand their temperament design. That just changes life for them. In a heartbeat, it'll change their life. And it changes the structure of the family. It changes the structure of every relationship. It changes the structure of your work environment. It changes your entire life. It's an improvement. It's a quantum leap forward in your quality of life. Goodness. And then your personality. Personality is nothing but it's shallow. It's a mask. It's our outer expression. It's self-selected. It changes at will. And you absolutely never know what's behind that false face. You just don't know. It's a guess. You may think you know, but you don't. And then the behavior can be anything. You have no idea what's going on in the person's behavior. What's caused that behavior? What's the origin of it? What's their emotional makeup? What caused it? You have no idea. You're just guessing. So when I say remember the triangle, remember the pyramid, always remember that temperament is determined down here. That's the solid part of who you are. And that's the part that you need to be looking at and examining. Okay. The GAP. GAP is an acronym. It stands for Great Anxiety Present. So anybody that has numbers that fall up here,
Oh, I'm sorry. I think the slides were out of order. So let me bring you back to that other one. There we go.
Anybody that has numbers that fall up here in this corner, that's what we call a gap. There's a 4-point or more spread between their first number and second number. Between their demonstrated and desired number, if there's a 4-point spread or more, that means that person is going to have anxiety in that area of their life. So if your social profile, your leadership profile, or your relationship profile has a 4-point spread or more in that area, you're going to experience anxiety in that area of your life. And that anxiety can be carried over into every area of your life, into leadership and relationship. But once you understand the gap is there, then that puts you in control of the anxiety rather than it being in control of you. You can manage it at that point. You're not going to change your temperament, but you can manage your temperament because you know your temperament, you know what the needs and desires are. Therefore, you don't allow yourself to get outside of your parameters of safety. You stay within your bandwidth, you stay in your comfort zone, and you're safeguarded there. What we're doing is building a psychological framework to protect you by giving you understanding of your temperament. That's your mental protection we're doing. Any questions about the gap? Okay, Connie.
Okay, so we already went through that. So I think as we think about organizational profiling, because here we talked about bringing temperament into the business, into the teams that work together, Dr. John. And if you think about what are some of those tips, I had a couple of suggestions, but I thought we would explore a little bit as a group and maybe open up for the folks on the phone to think about how they could deploy temperament in their specific role or function. And what are some, these are just some ideas that I had was if we were to think of, I got to create this opportunity for everyone who either works for me or works with me to better understand each other so that we can interact together. These were just a few ideas, whether it's into the recruiting and onboarding process, and I know you've been part of that before, creating team building events around temperament, or incorporating it into career progression practices and policies, or even into just how you organize your teams or shuffle teams periodically. What are some other things that come to mind for this group?
You can create marketing teams. You can create teams for sales. You can create teams for analytical designs, for creating shows, and you can put these teams together. You can figure out exactly what you want. Are you going to go after a particular audience? You can go out and select individuals with temperaments that are for sales or marketing, and you can go after that particular audience based upon your selection of people with the proper temperaments to go after the audience you want. So if you want to go after people that are out there in sales and marketing, you don't want to choose individuals that don't have good communication skills. You want to choose people that are outgoing, extroverted individuals that are sociable and have strong communication skills verbal skills to be able to talk to these individuals. You don't want introverts that don't like talking to people, because introverts, and 65% of the people out there in society are introverted. And introverts look like they don't want to talk to you. They look like they're analytical. They look like they're studying. They look like they don't want to be bothered, and they don't. So they don't make good salespeople. So you want to get to extroverted individuals that like people, that like socializing, because people can recognize that in a person in a heartbeat, whether they're relational or not, because they connect. And it's the relational people that draw the other relational people to them, which is who you want to be able to make your sales teams and your marketing teams together, because that's the people that make things happen for you. So there's a system that works extremely well when you start selecting your audience that you want to profile, that you want to target and select to bring into on board, or that you want to recruit. We can identify them. I had a day trader on Wall Street one time call me up, and he said, "Can you find me some day traders?" I said, "Yeah, how many you want?" He said, "I'd like to have about 10. I said, "Well, I can get you 10 day traders." I said, "If you let me profile all of your top day traders to get a prototype of exactly what you want, I'll go find them for you. And I'll find exactly what you want. I'll guarantee you I'll find them. And it may take me 100 profiles to find one or two of them, but I'll find them for you." He said, "I can't spend that much money trying to find that." But he said, "But it would make him a lot of money, but I could do it. I could find him good day traders that would make him a lot of money." He made a bad decision by not going with it, but you can do that.
And I think about, cost efficiencies. We're always looking at how do we operate more efficiently as a team? How do we squeeze out friction and communication challenges or escalation points between teams? How do we run projects more efficiently? So Temperament those are all examples of the organizational framework that can be put in place as well, wouldn't you think?
Most of the conflict that's internally within corporations is there because of temperament needs being violated. If I'm pushing against you and I'm pushing you outside of your temperament comfort zone, you're going to be uncomfortable and you're going to become irritable. If you're irritable, you're not going to be handling people and questions and situations appropriately, and you're going to be a little off. And you can be caustic or uncomfortable or snappy or whatever, and make things difficult in the office. That's what happens when your temperament is pushed outside its boundaries. You get uncomfortable and you become edgy, and all different kinds of things can happen. But when we start meeting your needs and desires in those zones of social leadership and relationship, you will come back into proper balance and comfortableness, and you'll be grounded again and functioning much more reasonable and productive as well, because you don't have the friction there, because you're okay, your needs are being fulfilled. But when you find out and that caution light comes on that you're being pushed outside your boundaries, and the caution light comes on, you recognize it when it comes on rather than ignoring it, and you can stop and begin to do something about it, because you know what it is. You know this uncomfortableness that goes on inside of you. Where's it coming from? Well, now you know it's your temperament's being violated. When you have this uncomfortableness in your stomach and it starts coming up and people start challenging you or something that starts making you feel uncomfortable, angry, that's a caution light. Somebody's pushing your boundaries beyond where you want to go. That's all that is. You're being violated. You're being pushed outside your temperament boundaries, and that's not going to work with you. So you have to de-escalate that and get back inside your boundaries, or otherwise it's going to be a conflict right there. And you're not going to be happy until you get back in your comfort zone. So in corporation, that happens all the time. And you don't know, society is full of people. You get out there, talk about road rage. Road rage is all because of unfulfilled needs. It's that simple. Everybody out there in society has needs, desires that are unfulfilled. And so they go around being miserable, and they make you miserable. They don't care about you because they're unhappy. So they'd go through life making everybody else miserable. And once you understand that, then you can begin to deal with life and people coming into your circles differently, because now you have command, because you have leverage and knowledge that they don't have, and you can deal with them more effectively. It's powerful. It's very, very powerful.
Are there any circumstances or scenarios that you all are thinking of based on what you've learned so far? Anybody want to share? Feel free to unmute and share. Ask any questions.
It's also a great matchmaking instrument. I've never taken it down that avenue, but it's a powerful matchmaking instrument. I can take any couple. I don't care who they are. I can take any couple. I can profile them and I can tell you where their problems are in a heartbeat. Instantly, I can tell you where their problems are, and I can tell you how to fix them as well. I can tell you where they're compatible and where they're incompatible.
And it goes to the thing about, I've said opposite attracts, but Dr. John, you've seen with, I'm Connie's partner, by the way, my name is Kerry Del Corso. We complement each other terrifically. And it's yes, I may need to initially contact somebody or to do follow-up or so forth. And Connie and I just fit hand in glove. So I do agree with you that if you have somebody that's spot on, that, you know, they're eights or nines and so forth, that might not necessarily be good, because I don't know, sometimes they want to try to outshine each other. But again, I find that with Connie's temperament and mine, it's fantastic. Similarly, with Jessica, who's on the phone, I work with her. It's the same type of thing, and her temperament follows kind of closely with Connie's.
Yes, well, the temperament power is that once you understand the value of your own temperament and you appreciate your design, then you immediately begin to appreciate other people's designs and let them be who they are. Because you begin to see their value, because you already see the value of your own temperament. And when you see that, you begin to say, well, everybody's got this value in their design. So they bring that value to the table. So everybody is special at that point.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's so exciting about it. Everybody.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think one thing that I'll share with the group when I learned my temperament, so I used to be one of the ones that, because I'm so introverted, I would be the wallflower, right, in parties and networking. Networking and that's a stretch. And so as soon as I really realized that, okay, this is just my natural state of, I'm more analytical, I'm okay kind of just in the back office, and I started getting more comfortable, it allows you to step into a real feeling of empowerment where I don't have to self-shame or blame myself like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you did that again. That self-talk that we do when we don't live up to our own expectations and standards. And that's because I set really high standards for myself. And that goes along with my leadership and my social temperaments. But then in relationships, I actually need to be invited in. I need to be, welcomed and, greeted in certain ways. And I don't actually demonstrate that. So there's a very different way to where Dr. John talked about how we are at work. I used to feel like I was two different people. I was one person at work, and then I was a different person in my close relationships. And that's, I think, is a testament to the temperament styles.
And with those temperament styles as well, I'll just share something, is that I do have a technical background. I have put together teams. I've worked on projects, and I find that, sure, I may meet a client and begin the relationship and so forth, but if I have an engineer on the team as well, who is an introvert, not by nature, just by their personality, they're fantastic. Once I bring them into the fold, sometimes I'll let the customer and them get together. Whereas if I didn't make that bridge, that would have never happened. Similarly, the technical person would just be the proverbial wallflower, not say a thing, but bring it into it. And the customer lots of times trusts them, but they don't trust me, but they trust them because they've been quiet. They show their knowledge, they get that bond, and that's where magic happens. with projects, with sales you're going to make, and so forth. It's really good stuff.
It is. That's right. And the introvert bring the data because that's what they are. They're data people.
And lots of times people trust. They may think that the person who's an extrovert, they're all bluster. They're all hot air. I don't
Yeah.
know if I really trust them. I don't know if I really trust them. But then you bring somebody who's more introverted, has the knowledge. They don't speak up right away. Then they bring their thoughts into it and they bring how we can get this done and they demonstrate certain things. That's where the bond is because lots of times, well, this person's quiet, but they're quiet for a particular reason. This guy just does a lot of talking and so forth. I'm really not too sure about them. That's where, again, it solidifies a team, and the team can also be your customer. That person then becomes part of the team as well, and that's where it's fantastic.
Yes. Absolutely. Collaboration. Yes.
Right? Exactly.
It works. And you can do that with temperament. You can hand select the individuals that you want on your team to put together a perfect team.
Absolutely. Tom, you look like you had maybe a suggestion or a topic.
Well, I just curious, yeah, and I asked that earlier question just because, again, having worked for like a Fortune 10 organization and that difference in the generations and what I've seen younger people both working for me and even my own kids, they seem to identify and gravitate to those labels of boomer, Gen X, millennial, you know, and they put weight on that, obviously when I was young in my 20s and 30s, like I never had such a label. And so I was just curious in this because I've gotten feedback from meetings and presentations that do seem to fall along those lines. And maybe I'm just the reluctant young boomer, right?
Well, Tom, the interesting thing with this is that I don't know if you're an analytical person. Thank you. I've got to get my brain engaged. Right. A technical person or whatever. This isn't black art. This is science. This is mathematics.
Yeah.
It's really interesting that you get the components. It's almost if you want to say that it's not artificial intelligence. We use that way too much, but it's almost like it's calculus. It really is. How these things fit together. It's not Dr. John saying, "Oh, I've seen this. No, they're formulas that by your answer or the person that you're trying to assess that they want to be on board, a future customer, whatever. It's science, pure and simple. It's just then we bring the human part into it. But that's what's so interesting about this, that he let me look under the cover, so to speak, under the hood. And yeah, it is mathematics. Really cool.
Yeah. Pure psychometrics. And math doesn't lie. 1 and 1 is not 3.
Exactly. And it's international, which is the cool thing about it. A 1 and a 0 is the same in China as it is in the United States. It's perfect. And that's something that doesn't lie. That even if you're dealing internationally, on a global level, you'll be able to see things that the cultural thing, sure, but that culture thing is broken then into discrete components that through a formula, you get your results.
And it still boils down to numbers.
Right.
I went to Portugal and I profiled 100 people of their pastors from Spain and Portugal, did a 4-day conference over there. And temperament was temperament there, regardless of where you are. Temperament is still the same. It doesn't change based upon geographical location or ethnic orientation. Does not change.
Yeah, that was probably the biggest aha for me when I was going through the certification for temperament was we have 8 billion people on this planet and it still boils down to 5 temperaments.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, so I thought what would be really interesting is as we try to wrap up today's conversation, I hope this has been really informative and helpful or created some intellectual curiosity with all of you. But certainly what we, Carrie and I and Dr. John, try to do is, why should CEOs or any organizational leader add WIDP, which is the temperament profiling tool, to their toolbox as they build their teams, as they structure their organizations, scale and grow, whatever their objectives are strategically or immediate objectives for their organization. And what's interesting is, if you look at the top 3 concerns that CEOs are typically concerned around, you can see where WIDP may play a role. So I thought it would be interesting just to put these on the list. You know, everybody's talking about digital transformation. How do we communicate? We're investing in new technologies. AI is out there, chatbots are out there, but it still comes down to people's temperament as far as how they're interacting with those tools. And then we're all talking about social responsibility and ethical governance practices, DEI, for example, DEIJ, inclusion, diversity, all of those terms are out there, and temperament plays a role in those as well. And then the last but not least is the HR trends with the workplaces. And that's the talent acquisition and the retention of employees. And what a gift to employees if you can give them the power of themselves. And
Yes.
so mental health challenges on the rise, different shifts and patterns and behaviors. What if temperament could help us understand ourselves and our teams, and or collaborate and shift from conflict to collaboration just using a simple tool? And so these are the things of what's the art of the possible, what's possible, and how can we elevate the conversations we're having inside of our organizations.
Once you get to the deeper level of understanding temperament, you will find that it will take you deeper and deeper and deeper, because the more you understand about your intrinsic design, you're going to see it, and it's going to take you inside of who you are. Instead of you looking outside all the time, you're going to continue to look inside, and you're going to see yourself at different levels of understanding of who you are. And you're going to change your own temperament understanding, which is going to change how you think and feel about yourself and about other people. And it's 100% empowering you all the way through to be a better person. It's wonderful.
Any other commentary, questions before we kind of wrap up? We've got a couple more slides, but I wanted to just kind of pause. Was this thought-provoking for you, just to think about the top trends that CEOs are looking at?
Hey, Connie.
Yeah.
Hey, I just wanted to add some to this conversation. I think it's great. I think the WIDP would be great for any company out there, large or small, and just profiling exactly who you're going to be hiring, and that'll save a lot of time in the interim. With the process, and actually maybe a bigger upfront cost to you in the beginning, but it's going to save your company a lot of money in the long run. So in turnovers and things like that, and training and all those growth ventures that businesses have. So in that respect, I think it'd be fantastic for any company.
Absolutely. Thanks, Steve. I think those are spot on. Those are some of the aha moments that I think we wanted folks to kind of walk away from today. Thank you for that valid.
It really reduces the turnover in corporations, because corporations are hiring based on other instruments like the DISC, the MBTI, and those other instruments, which are personality instruments, and they're hiring a false face to begin with, and putting that false face mask in a position that they're not acclimated for. And so they're in the position, and they spend all this money training them and getting onboarded, only to find out 90 days later that they're unqualified for the position, they're unmatched for the position, they don't fit, and now they've wasted thousands and thousands of dollars training them in that position. What are they going to do? They got to start over again. But with WIDP, you fit the person with the position, you fit the temperament with the position, and you got a win-win situation going in, because the person will say, yes, I match up with this position. You as a temperament expert can match them up with position much more effective, and your success rate is going to be 95% higher.
And what I like about this is, even if that person goes through the recruiting process, and let's say we get to the last stage interview and they get their temperament profile and it's not a good fit for the role, but they now have a temperament tool that can be shared with them about the why, and they can go and take that and maybe find a position that better matches their ability. So that is a bit of a gift that person, that employer, could actually invest back into the community to help them find a position that's better suited for them.
I would do it the other way around. I would profile them first before they went looking for a job. Absolutely, hands down, yes.
But either way, they walk away from
Yeah.
that particular employer with a, wow, that person actually invested in me. I may not be right for this job, but that brand stands out.
Yes, exactly. Good
Cynthia,
point.
you have a question?
Well, I just wanted to add to something you said earlier about DE&I, coming from that background with staff and recruiting throughout major corporations throughout the country. Since 2019, 2021, actually, that has taken a decline. It's not nearly the conversation or even the interest of major CEOs anymore. It was in 2019 and 20 when we were dealing with racial wars. This right here, because I'm studying this instrument, this tool, this will allow you to hire the right innovative mind for the right position. I know for a fact that DE&I has not fulfilled its line item budget. I know for a fact that the hype has dropped. Now everything is AI, everything is different. So we do need something that we can count on, because we do want to be not just fair, what we want to do is build better businesses along the way, so that teams are made not based upon we attended the same school, we're from the same region.
Right.
I've done an example with a major corporation where I took away the names, the education, where people were from regionally, and allowed them, the HR people, to hire the managers to align who they wanted on their team. And initially, it was based upon familiarity and what made them comfortable. The same exact people they chose to hire were the people that they chose not to hire. And I was trying to show them biases are just natural for each of us. So this type of tool will help us, if we're fair and equitable and truly want to be inclusive to everyone. This should put us on a way where the trajectory of hiring should change.
Absolutely. It has no difference. It's not gender biased. It's not age biased. It's not ethnic biased. It's not culturally biased at all. It fits everything that we need to find people to fit in the right spots. It's a perfect instrument. Thank you, Dr. Harper.
Thank you. Yeah, and Dr. Harper, I think when I raised about DEI, what I've been noticing, and I come from the financial systems background, right? So the banks and the credit unions and the technology platforms that serve them, is they're certainly paying attention to the sustainability and the ESG from an inclusion, but it's really starting to shift to social responsibility more than DEI, but they use DEI as the buzzword to say, we've got to have an initiative, we've got to have a corporate social responsibility.
Absolutely.
But they don't really have the right tools. So when Dr. John and I met, I agree with you. This is a tool that is ultimate inclusion for all, regardless of all of those biases. Because you're right, there are, but it helps us get back to what I call authentic business practices of what is that dream and that vision of that CEO when they started that business, and what is it that they intend to do to serve that community or to sell their widget or whatever that business goal and mission was created to do. Let's get them back to that. And
Absolutely.
I think give them that chance to build a team to do that.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Individuals should work in a situation that presents purpose to them. This is why this gig economy is so important to people, because they don't have to be obligated and they can do just enough to create income so that they can fulfill a purpose that means something special to them. If you don't hire people based upon what they truly love, what you're doing is placing people in a seat that will eventually turn on your group. They might be there as a live body, but they're dead. So what I mean, turn on your group, they're just picking up a check. I've seen it 1,000 times.
Yeah.
I've interviewed people 1,000 times. I know what they're going. When I ask them, so what is it you really want to do? This is just me and you. You don't have to explain. And I tell them, I show them, I need you to be truthful to yourself so that you can find joy coming in here. Because working for anyone is a journey.
Yes.
It's not, so if you're in the wrong position and you think you're a network engineer and you're actually supposed to be somewhere in HR, just based upon the monies or based upon that's where the cool people are. That's who hired me. My dad attended the same school as her dad. Those things happen. I've
Yeah.
seen it a lot. So
Yeah, you do.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for those comments. All right, so we have one other slide here. So what we did is, this is, if you haven't created your own profile, and thank you for those of you that took advantage of the early bird free gift. We do have the ability for you to create your profile.